For more than 1,000 years, fishermen off the coast of Brittany have told stories about a city beneath the waves. They call it Waes. According to legend, it was the richest port on the Atlantic, protected by a great stone seawall. One night, a princess stole the key to the gates and opened them. The ocean rushed in and swallowed everything. On calm days, Breton fishermen still say they can hear church bells ringing from beneath the water. Scientists dismissed the story for centuries. A fairy tale. Celtic mythology with no basis in reality. Then in 2017, a retired deep-sea geologist named Yves Fouquet was studying laser scans of the ocean floor just 10 kilometers from where the legend places the sunken city. Fouquet had spent his career mapping hydrothermal vents thousands of meters beneath the ocean for the French government. He knew what natural geology looked like, and what he saw on that scan was not natural. A perfectly straight line, 400 feet long, cutting across a submerged valley 9 meters beneath the Atlantic. Every geological fault in that region had cracked in the same direction 100 million years ago. This line ran perpendicular to all of them. It took 5 years before divers could reach the site. And when they found the seafloor, they were staring at a wall. 3,300 tons of carefully stacked granite, reinforced with 60 standing stones arranged in 2 parallel rows. Some of those stones are still upright after 7,000 years of Atlantic storms. This structure is older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older even than the famous standing stones at Carnac, just down the coast. The researchers themselves wrote in their peer-reviewed study that the loss of this engineered coastline likely left a lasting impression that became deeply rooted in people's memories. The legend of a drowned city protected by a great seawall may not be a legend at all. And what the divers found beneath the Atlantic changes what we thought we knew about who built the first monuments in Europe. We are going to walk through this discovery in 4 parts. First, what exactly the divers found on the ocean floor and why it stunned even the researchers. Second, why this wall is forcing archaeologists to rethink the origins of megalithic construction across all of Europe. Third, how the legend of Ies and a Roman account from the 1st century connect to this exact location. And finally, why this is not an isolated find, but part of a global pattern that is rewriting human history from the bottom of the ocean. Let us start with what is sitting on that sea floor. Fouquet did not rush to announce what he had seen on the LiDAR scan. He kept the coordinates to himself for 5 years. He told Le Monde that at first, he did not believe it himself. He thought the straight line might be an artifact of the scanning process, a glitch in the data from the French Litho 3D program that maps the entire coastline at centimeter resolution. But the more he studied it, the more certain he became. This was not a natural formation. In May 2022, he shared the GPS coordinates with Philippe Baudens, president of SAM, the Société d'Archéologie et de Mémoire Maritime. This is a volunteer organization of roughly 30 divers based in Brittany who have been documenting shipwrecks and underwater heritage for over 30 years. They are not amateurs in any casual sense. They operate under official authorization from France's Department of Underwater Archaeological Research, and their database contains over 18,000 files on wrecks in the English Channel and Atlantic. Baudens made his first dive to the coordinates on May 5, 2022. He was returning from a dive near the Armen Lighthouse, one of the most dangerous lighthouses in the world, built on a rock so battered by Atlantic storms that construction took 14 years. He used his remaining air to drop down to Fouquet's site. When he surfaced, he told his team it looked like the Carnac stone alignments, but underwater in the Irois Sea. Over the next 2 years, 10 divers from SAM conducted 59 dives, totaling more than 35 hours of bottom time, in some of the most treacherous waters in France. Strong Atlantic swells, powerful tidal currents, and thick seasonal seaweed forced them to dive in winter, when algae coverage died back and visibility improved. What they documented was extraordinary. The main structure, designated TAF1, stretches 120 meters across a submerged valley. It is 20 meters wide and averages 2 meters in height. The total mass is approximately 3,300 tons of granite. But the construction is not a crude pile of stones. The divers found that the builders had placed the monoliths first, directly onto the bedrock, in pairs at regular intervals. Then they built the wall around those standing stones, using slabs and angular fill boulders, packing them between the monolith pairs like a skeleton wrapped in muscle. 2 parallel rows of monoliths run along the top of the wall, spaced 1.5 meters apart. Some of those monoliths weigh up to 2 tons and rise 1.7 meters above the wall surface. 80% of the granite blocks came from low-lying areas nearby. The monoliths themselves were quarried from surrounding reefs. Different types of stone were sourced from different locations for different purposes. That is not random construction. That is a supply chain. And there is one detail that most news reports missed entirely. The wall is asymmetric. When you look at a 3-dimensional reconstruction, the south-facing flank, the side exposed to the strongest Atlantic swells, carries significantly more mass than the north flank. Someone deliberately reinforced the side facing the open ocean. That is not something you do if you are building a fish trap. That is something you do if you are trying to stop the sea. In total, the team identified 11 separate human-built structures across 2 areas. The Bretons call Toul ar Fot, meaning hole of the wave, and Jan ar Gall. Some of the smaller structures match the dimensions and patterns of known prehistoric fish traps. But the main wall exceeds every known fish trap dimension in France for this period. Its monoliths are taller than the standard height for tidal weirs, and its reinforced south flank has no equivalent in any documented fishing structure. The study, published in the International Journal of Nautical Archaeology in December 2025, proposes 2 possible interpretations. Either these structures functioned as massive fish traps, maintained and rebuilt over centuries as the sea rose. Or the largest wall served as a protective barrier, essentially a prehistoric dike, shielding the coastline from waves and storm surges during a period when the sea was advancing at 5 to 8 millimeters per year. The researchers believe the truth may involve both a managed seascape where different structures served different purposes across one coastal landscape. Now this discovery becomes something bigger than one wall off the coast of France. The monoliths embedded in this underwater wall look remarkably similar to Brittany's famous menhirs on land. The paired standing stones, the regular spacing, the granite quarrying techniques. But the underwater structures are older, significantly older. The wall dates to approximately 5,800 to 5,300 BC. The oldest known megalithic monuments on land in Brittany, the recumbent menhirs at Bells, date to 5,220 BC at the earliest. The legendary alignments at Carnac were erected around 4,700 BC, more than 1,000 years after the underwater wall was built. Yvonne Pyler, professor of archaeology at the University of Western Brittany and co-author of the study, believes there may have been a direct transfer of knowledge. Mesolithic hunter-gatherers living on the coast learned how to extract, shape, and transport multi-ton granite blocks for practical purposes, building seawalls and fish traps. When Neolithic farming populations arrived from the east around 5000 BC, they encountered communities that already knew how to work with massive stone. The incoming farmers did not bring megalithism to Brittany. They inherited it from the people who were already there. This matters because the standard story of European civilization says that monumental stone construction began with settled farming communities. Agriculture created surplus. Surplus created specialization. Specialization created the labor force needed to move giant stones. But the wall off Ile de Seine was built by people who had no agriculture. They were maritime hunter-gatherers who fished the Atlantic coast and gathered shellfish from the tidal zones. They moved 3,300 tons of granite into a coordinated, engineered structure that has survived 7,000 years of ocean storms. If this matters to you, hit like and subscribe. We cover discoveries like this every week. Now we need to talk about something the researchers themselves brought up in their study: a legend. The legendary city of Ais is the most famous story in Breton folklore. The city supposedly stood in the Bay of Douarnenez, just 10 kilometers east of where the underwater wall was found. According to the oldest versions of the tale, Ais was built 2,000 years before King Gradlon's reign, and was already being threatened by the sea. Massive walls were constructed to keep the water out. A single gate, opened only at low tide, allowed ships to enter. The key to that gate was held by the king alone. His daughter Daut stole it. The sea poured in. The city drowned. For centuries, that was just a story. But the authors of the December 2025 study chose to address it directly in their paper. They wrote that the abandonment of a territory developed by a highly structured society likely became deeply rooted in people's memories. The submersion caused by rapid sea level rise, followed by the abandonment of fishing structures, protective works, and habitation sites, must have left a lasting impression. They are not saying they found whys. They are saying that the archaeological evidence now provides a plausible real-world origin for a legend that has been told and retold for millennia. And there is a deeper layer that almost nobody has connected yet. In the 1st century AD, the Roman geographer Pomponius Mela described the Ile de Seine as home to an oracle. He wrote that 9 virgin priestesses called the Galizanae lived on the island. According to Mela, these women could heal the incurable, predict the future, and summon storms at will. Sailors crossed dangerous waters specifically to consult them. 2 megalithic menhirs still stand on Ile de Seine today. And here is where the science meets the folklore in a way that is almost unsettling. Pierre Stéphane, a CNRS geomorphologist at the University of Western Brittany, is a co-author on both the December 2025 underwater wall study and a separate 2021 paper by Patrick Nunn, published in the journal Geoarchaeology. That paper examined Breton submergence legends and concluded that some of these oral traditions may preserve genuine memories of real coastal flooding events going back more than 8,300 years. These stories were passed down from mouth to ear across 300 to 400 generations. The same researcher who helped document the physical wall also helped build the scientific framework for understanding how its memory survived in stories about drowned cities and sunken seawalls for 7,000 years. That is not speculation. That is 2 peer-reviewed papers from the same scientist converging on the same coastline. This discovery off Brittany is not an isolated event. It is part of a pattern emerging from ocean floors around the world. In 2021, marine geologists accidentally discovered a stone wall on the bottom of the Baltic Sea near Germany. They called it the Blinker Wall. It stretches almost a kilometer, is built from 1,670 stones, and sits 21 meters underwater. It was constructed approximately 11,000 years ago, when the entire population of Northern Europe numbered fewer than 5,000 people. Researchers believe Stone Age hunters built it to funnel migrating reindeer toward a lake where they could be trapped and killed. Off the coast of Israel, at a site called Tel Hreitz, Archaeologists found a boulder seawall more than 100 meters long, built approximately 7,000 years ago to protect a Neolithic village from rising Mediterranean waters. It now sits 3 meters below sea level. Until the Brittany discovery, it held the title of oldest known coastal defense structure in the world. And beneath Lake Huron in Michigan, at a depth of 37 meters, researchers found stone structures 9,000 years old, used by prehistoric caribou hunters, identical in concept to the Blinker Wall, on the other side of the Atlantic. 3 continents, thousands of years apart, and every single one of these structures was found underwater, preserved by the very seas that swallowed them. On dry land, plowing, construction, and erosion have destroyed almost everything from this period. But beneath the waves, time stopped. When the last ice age ended, global sea levels rose by more than 120 meters. Coastlines moved inland, hundreds of kilometers. The places where prehistoric people lived and fished and built their most ambitious structures are now sitting on the continental shelf, 9 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters beneath the surface. Some estimates suggest that 90% of all coastal archaeological sites from before 5000 BC are currently underwater. We have been studying the leftovers on high ground and calling it the complete picture. The Ile de Seine wall survived because granite does not rot, because the sea preserved what it drowned, and because a geologist who was born on that island happened to look at the right scan at the right time and recognized that nature does not make straight lines. The SAMM dive team is returning to the site in March 2026. They are searching for organic material that could allow radiocarbon dating, which would give us a precise construction date instead of the current estimate based on sea level curves. They are looking for habitation sites, evidence that people lived near this wall, not just built it. And they are mapping additional structures along the submerged coastline that may extend the network even further. If they find what they are looking for, this story transforms from a remarkable discovery into something that rewrites the timeline of European civilization. 7,000 years ago, on a coastline that no longer exists, a community of fishermen and hunters moved 3,300 tons of granite to build a wall against the rising sea. They quarried monoliths from nearby reefs, placed them upright on the bedrock, and packed thousands of stones around them in a construction sequence that required planning, coordination, and engineering knowledge we did not think existed in that period. They reinforced the ocean-facing side because they understood where the threat was coming from. The sea won. It always does. The coastline retreated, the wall went under, and the people who built it vanished from history, but not from memory. Somewhere in the centuries that followed, the story of a great seawall and a drowned civilization entered Breton oral tradition. It changed shape over the millennia. It acquired kings and princesses and stolen keys. But at its core, the legend of Wise preserved one specific, verifiable detail. There was a wall, and the sea took it. The Breton fishermen have a saying, "Pavobose Paris, ec ad savo ker is." When Paris drowns, the city of Ys will rise again. After 7,000 years beneath the Atlantic, it just did.